Ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Humbert here, and welcome to your first video of the trimester. So we are going to do Unit 1, Notes 1. So we are going to talk about solving equations. Now this is something you've done previously in probably middle school, but we're also going to be just kind of reviewing it because you're going to need it for all of algebra this year. So let's go ahead and let's take a look. So I do want you to write these steps down because it kind of helps if you ever get stuck at any point to have these written down. So there are 4 steps that will help you solve every equation. The first step is to simplify each side of the equal sign by distributing and combining like terms. So you're going to take each side and you're going to simplify one side and then simplify the other before you bring things over to other sides of the equal sign. Next, you're going to gather variables to one side of the equal sign. So we want to get all our letters on the same side so that we can start solving this equation. So if I'm going too fast, remember that you can always pause the video to make sure that you can get it all written down at once. The next thing you're going to do is use addition or subtraction to cancel the constant. So you want to bring that constant or that thing that's just a number right on over to the other side. And finally, what you want to do is use multiplication or division to cancel the coefficient. Now the coefficient is that number that's being multiplied outside of the letter. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's kind of put this into practice. So let's take a look at number 1. So the first thing I want to do is simplify each side of the equal sign. Well, I can start simplifying by combining these two terms. So I have x plus 5x. Well, I add those together and I get 6x. Minus 5 is equal to 1. Excuse me, so now what I'm going to do is add 5 to both sides. So then I get that 6x is equal to 6. So I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 6. Notice that that 6 is being multiplied by the x. So to get it over to the other side, I need to divide both sides by 6. And then I end up getting that x is equal to 1. So that's the answer to number 1, is that x is equal to 1. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at number 2. So we want to simplify both sides of the equal sign. So to start off with, what we're going to do is we're going to distribute in that 12. So then we are going to do 12 times 2, which is 24. 12 times negative x, which is negative 12x, and that's going to be equal to 36. So I multiplied each thing in the parentheses by 12. So now what I want to do is I want to get that constant over to the other side. So I need to bring that 24 over to the other side. So what I'm going to do is subtract 24 from both sides. This is a positive 24. So in order to get it over to the other side, I need to do a negative 24. So I get a negative 12x, and then 36 minus 24 is going to give me 12. Okay, so that's going to be a positive 12. So the next thing I need to do is to divide both sides by a negative 12. Well, whenever I divide a positive and a negative number, my answer is going to be negative. So 12 divided by negative 12 is going to give me a negative 1. So that's my answer for number 2. Let's take a look at number 3. So I've already simplified on both sides. So what I need to do is get my letters to the same side of the equation. So what I'm going to do is add 2x to both sides. So then I get 8x minus 11 is equal to 5. So now I need to get that 11 over to the other side. So since that's the minus 11, I'm going to add 11 to both sides. So then I get 8x is equal to 16 when I add 5 plus 11. So then I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 8. So then 16 divided by 8 is going to give me 2. So then my answer is that x is equal to 2. Taking a look at this one, I want to take that negative 4 and distribute it in. So I'm going to distribute that negative 4 in. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. Then when I take negative 4 and multiply it by negative 3, I'm going to get a positive 12. And that's going to be equal to a negative x. So now what I want to do is I want to bring this and get the x's on the same side. So then I'm going to add 4x to both sides. So then I have 12 is equal to negative x plus 4x, which is 3x. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 3, and I get that x is equal to 4. So then that's my final answer. Now let's take a look at number 5. So this one's a little bit more confusing because we have that fraction there. So what I want to do is I actually know that since there's no number out in front of that x, that's basically the same as 1x. Okay, so Well, I don't really know what to do with that 1x, so I'm going to keep this as 1/2 x. But then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to write 1x as 2 over 2x. Now, why did I do that? Well, 2 over 2 is the same as 1, right? Okay, but in order to add fractions, I need to have my denominator the same. So now I can add those two numerators. So I have -10 is equal to 3/2 and then x. So now I need to get rid of that 3/2 x. So whenever we are multiplying by a fraction, the best way to get rid of that fraction is to multiply by the reciprocal. Well, the reciprocal is simply the fraction flipped over. So that'll cancel out the 2 and the 3. So then now we have a fraction. So we're going to take 2 times -10, which is -20, divide that by 3, and that's equal to x. So this right here is our final answer for number 5. Okay, now number 6 can be really tricky. This is called a cross multiplication problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply across the fraction. So I'm going to take 3 and I'm going to multiply it times x, and I'm going to take 2 and I'm going to multiply it times x minus 2. Now this only works if we have two fractions that are set equal to each other. So 3 times x is 3x, and then we're going to have 2 times x minus 2. And then this just goes through and it's solved as a normal equation. So what I would like you to do is go ahead and pause the video and finish solving out this equation. So let's take a look at number 7. So your school is building a new computer lab. So you have a total of 400 square feet. Well, numbers are probably going to be important in a math problem. The center will be available for computer stations. Each station requires 20 square feet. So I'm going to let x equal our computer stations. So x is going to be the number of computer stations that we have. Okay? So for every x computer stations that I have, it's going to be 20. Okay? Then it's going to be 400 total feet. So now what I want to do is I'm just going to solve this for x. So I'm going to divide both sides by 20, and I end up getting 20. So x is equal to 20. But because this is a word problem, I need to label it. So it's going to be 20 computer stations. So we could fit 20 different computer stations in that 400 square foot area. Now let's take a look at this chart. So a lot of times in math, we have to take words and translate them into math symbols. And this is kind of like your cheat sheet. Whenever you see something like added to, increased by, more than, sum, addition to, all of those things tell you that you need to add. So if you see those words in a word problem, you need to add. If you see subtracted from, decreased by, less than, difference taken away from, all of those are subtracting. Next, if you see multiplied by, product, times, a third of, a half of, a fourth of, all of those mean multiplication. So we sometimes see multiplication like that as an x or just as a dot, like that. Okay? Next, quotient divided by, split into pieces, groups, whatever that may be, represents division. Now remember that division can also be represented by a fraction. If you ever see something squared, so if I say I'm going to have 2 squared, all that means is you're going to have some number, we'll just label it as a, and it's going to be raised to the second power. Well, a squared is the same as a times a. Now if we see we have something cubed, we're going to take some number and we're going to raise it to the third power, which is the same as a times a times a. And if we have something raised to the nth power, that means we're going to have a to the n, which means we're going to have a times a times a, and that's going to be n times. And last but not least, is the same as or equal to obviously means the equal sign. So if you see words like that, that means you need to put in an equal sign. Okay, so let's kind of put this into practice. So the sum of a number and 16 is 32. So a number is going to be x. We don't know what that is. So the sum means adding. So that means our x plus our 16 needs to be equal to 32. So right now we're just translating them into equations. We're not solving them quite yet. Then the product of 16 and a number, again, I'm going to multiply that as x, is equal to 32. So that's really just 16 times x, because product means multiplication, is equal to 32. Now, a lot of times we'll see something like this written as 16x is equal to 32. The 16 and x are being multiplied when they're right next to each other like that. Taking a look at number 10, the quotient of a number and 16 is 32. So quotient means divide. So that means we're going to take x and we're going to divide it by 16. And that's going to be equal to 32. Okay? The fourth power of a number is 16. So again, x is going to represent our number. So we're going to take x, raise it to the fourth power, and that's going to be equal to 16. The difference between a number and 16 is 32. So we're taking x minus 16, and that's going to be equal to 32. So now all of those have been translated into phrases. Last but not least, let's take a look at this word problem. A rock climbing gym charges non-members $16 per day to use the gym and $8 per day to rent equipment. Members pay a yearly fee of $450, so it doesn't matter how many days they go, they're paying $450. And $6 per day for equipment rental. Okay, so that does matter per day. Here's a hint I will tell you. Whenever you see this per, a lot of times that per means you're going to need a variable of some sort. Okay, so it's for every X day, so X is going to represent days. So now we're talking about a non-member. So for every X day the non-member goes, they have to pay $16 to get in, as well as $8 for the equipment rental. Now the non-member is paying that one-time fee of $450. So then we have X days that they have to pay $6 for equipment rental. So now all we have to do is solve this. So first I want to combine my variables on that side. So 16x plus 8x is going to give me 18. Oops. 24, come on, Miss Humbert, is going to give me 24. X is equal to 6x plus 450. So now I want to bring that 6x over to the other side. 24 minus 6x, now here's where we're going to get that 18x, is equal to 450. That 18 is being multiplied by the x, so I'm going to go ahead and divide both sides by 18, and I end up getting that x is equal to 25, and then I'm going to write days, because that's how many days you need to go to the gym to make it worth it to buy a membership. So that concludes your note video, and once you show me your completed note sheet, you can go ahead and get the practice sheet. Thanks for listening.